Well, hello again, guys, from here at St James's Park, and what a strange feeling it is to be alone inside here now. 2 hours ago, this place felt like the centre of the footballing universe. Wow, 3-3, what a game, and it so easily could have been 4-3. What was referee Andy Madley thinking of blowing for full time there as Newcastle broke in the 95th minute, a 3-on-1 situation, and that would have been one intro I would have more than happily ripped up. I was right on deadline, it was 3-3, the copy had been sent down the line to London, but the chance to write about the retribution for all those years ago, the 2-4-3 defeats for Newcastle in the mid-90s, well, that would have been one story that was worth it. Alas, it was not to be. And the point I want to make before I have to pick through the entirety of this 95 minutes, should have been 96, of the 95 minutes, is that I don't think we've learned anything new tonight, and all three results were still in play going into the 90th minute there before Fabian Schär equalises for Newcastle. And the point I want to make, that's not a negative. You know, if I'm stood here now saying, where on earth did Newcastle pull that performance from? That would be negative if that had come from nowhere and it was uncharacteristic. But no, I said before the game in my preview video yesterday, in fact, I went one further. I said I thought Newcastle would win tonight. It was everything I expected it would be. That display before kick-off there from more flags, get into them. Newcastle did that in more. I expected a fast start. What we got was a very fast start. Liverpool couldn't live with Newcastle, but we know they can do that. That aggression, that energy, that intent, on the front foot from the off. Intensity is our identity and everything else. Yes, we know they're capable of that. That is them at the very best. But the question I would ask is, why do they only produce the very best right now, especially at home, against the very best? Look at the four best performances of this season here tonight. Against Liverpool, the league leaders, in the League Cup against Chelsea, 2-0, Arsenal 1-0, and then before that, Manchester City 1-1. Where were those performances? Where was that attitude, and where was that application, and where was that quality against West Ham? Against Brighton here to extended, Crystal Palace away on Saturday down at Selhurst Park. 0 shots on or off target. They had one inside 90 seconds here tonight. Bournemouth at the start of the season, and that is what I would put back at Newcastle. And again, that's not a negative, because that there tonight, well, that's a positive. That is what they can do. You then say to Eddie Howe and his players, well, you go and produce that every week now, starting at Brentford down on Saturday. But can they do that? Can they do it when the onus is on them to come out and be the dominant team in a football match? Well, is it any coincidence that Newcastle's best 4 performances, those I spoke about then, the best performances even, down at Forest and others this season, have come when they've had less possession, when they've had less of the ball? Now, that allows them to play, and this is something I've explored many times, and it's a theory I've put out there for a long time now, that Newcastle are better when they do have less of it, and they've got that space to exploit on the transition, and we saw that there tonight. But, and this goes back to what Eddie Howe has just said to us, he was asked that question, and he didn't really talk and eulogise about the difference in attacking quality as much as that was there. He spoke more, about attitude, application, and that is why there must be frustration for the manager. Yes, there's a disparity in quality between games, but I also think, and I think he clearly thinks this too, there's a disparity in a drop-off in the difference in how they go about the basic principles of the game. Why tonight do they come out like that, all guns blazing, charging down Liverpool like they did against Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester City here? Why do they do that for those games and they can't rally themselves and raise themselves for others? That is a conversation and something they're going to have to work on internally between them, because tonight they were brilliant, it was wonderful, and I'm going to pick through the game, as I said, and I'll give them all the praise and credit they're due. But they go to Brentford on Saturday, do it then, and that's when we'll really be talking about corners being turned for good. Because for now, my suspicion and a little fear lingers that this season could just bounce through like this, win, lose, draw, and they might just populate that area in which they're in between 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. They're better than that. Tonight showed they're better than that, and let's explore why. Okay, take a breath, the first half. So Newcastle came out, and they came out with that display from more flags. The idea was to have a Kevin Keegan tribute tonight. I think the guys who do the displays realised they needed something which spoke to today, not yesterday, and when you guys and when St James's needs to rally behind its team. And I think tonight they were in need of inspiration and support on the back of a difficult past couple of games. Wow, did that happen? And it was evident right from the off, from Bruno winning the ball on halfway. That was a recurring theme. I thought Bruno was fantastic tonight. He slips it forward, Tonali with a quick little feet and the shot round the corner. And the relief, breaking news, Newcastle had a shot on target, and that really set the tone. There was a moment after that, about the 3rd or 4th minute, I made a note of it and I turned to the guys next to me in the press box and I said, this game, this is going to go the way I thought it was going to go. I think it was Anthony Gordon charged the full-back down as he does. He can really have a habit and a tendency to buy in to nights like this. Another one who was brilliant, the Merit Stars guys, we'll get to them, a lot of contenders. Gordon did it, Tonali followed him up as well. Tonali, again, Merit Stars, we're talking, you know, there's so many, but we'll save that for down the line. Let's talk about the collective and what actually happened. And yet, from that moment on, you're expecting Newcastle to get that opening goal. In actual fact, there was a little bit of a lull for the first 10 minutes. Newcastle were so fast and so much better. You just left that opening period and thought, oh, they might just come to regret this. Alexis McAllister had a shot which clipped the post at the Gallagher end there. Nick Pope made another good save from Alexis McAllister. But they recovered and they came again. And the goal, the brilliant goal, and Arnie Slot downstairs has just said to us, wow, whoa, in Dutch rather, was the only word he had to describe it. He said his goalkeeper didn't even see it. It was brilliant. Bruno again on halfway receives the ball on the half turn, dances away from Alexis McAllister. When was the last time we saw Bruno Guimaraes complete a dribble? I don't know. He does it, finds Isak, but there's still loads for Isak to do. You know, he's 25, 30 yards from goal. He's got between him and the target. He's got that distance, and Virgil van Dijk, while he made light work of both of them, drops his shoulder to get away from Van Dijk, and just the rocket into the top corner, just the sort of goal that takes you out of your seat. It was absolutely stunning. It was incredible. And again, I'm going to save comment on individuals until we get to the Merit Stars, but Isak, again, I'll throw him in the mix. Wonderful, incredible. Eddie Howe, he did eulogise about Isak, by the way, downstairs. He doesn't normally do that in terms of breaking from the general narrative of his reflections, as much as he says he thinks everyone plays well. But in terms of Isak, he did do that. He called him magic. He said he popped up in pockets here, there and everywhere, and Liverpool couldn't live with them, and they couldn't. So that's 1-0 to Newcastle. And within a few moments of that opening goal, Anthony Gordon is sent through on goal. It's good work by Isak, but ultimately it's Joe Gomez who had a nightmare, who sent him there with a poor back pass. Gordon's one-on-one, and he looks as if he's actually made the right call. Rather than snatch at the chance, he takes it close to Kelleher, and I'm thinking he's going to go around him here, like he's done before when he takes that time and slips either way around a goalkeeper and either scores a goal or wins a penalty. But he took the shot, and I think it was probably the wrong selection in the end, and he's put it straight at Kelleher. But then, as he's on the floor, he gets up, and Virgil van Dijk, and this is a sign of how rattled he was, quite inexplicably puts his shoulder into Gordon's face. Now, I didn't see it at the time, and it was only on the replay. And at the replay, 4 guys sat in a row in the press box, we all say, that's a penalty, that's a red card, surely VAR are going to look at it. Well, of course, VAR would have looked at it, and I don't quite understand how they haven't deemed that action should be taken there. At the very least, send Andy Madley to his monitor to go and assess and address an incident which he's clearly missed. Because if the referee sees that in real time, I honestly think he does something about it. It was quite staggering how that wasn't revisited. And as I said, it was a sign of Liverpool being in the hole that they were, and Van Dijk, and during who's been Mr. Cool of late, he was flustered, he was rattled because he was being given a roasting by Alexander Isak. So Newcastle get to half time, and again there's just that little suspicion that when Anthony Gordon has missed that chance, that it might just come back to haunt them. And Newcastle were good enough with 7 shots. Jacob Murphy hit the post, or other openings as well. Isak got in one way, he pulled it back, and there was nobody there. Bruno had a shot where he just shuffled it. He should have made a better connection, but you got to half time, and 1-0 was well deserved. It should have been and could have been 2 or 3. Would they live to regret that? Well, Liverpool were never going to be as generous and as ill-disciplined and as poor as they were in the first half. Of course they weren't. Within 5 minutes of the second half, the level, it's the only time, or the first time rather, Mo Salah has got in behind Lewis Hall. He does that and he pulls it back, and Curtis Jones, he's probably got to mention this, I thought Tonali was good, but he didn't show enough aggression and defensive discipline there in tracking Curtis Jones' run. He allows him to get the shot, and Jones lifts it into the top corner of the Leazes end net. That's 1-1, and you go to a passage in the game whereby at the start of the first half it was Newcastle landing all the blows. Now it's the home side who are on the ropes, and you're just looking at it thinking, and again I always say this, you've got to sort of sway things in terms of your match report on these live nights, and the tone of what I'm writing is just tilting now towards Yes, a valiant Newcastle display. How could it not be based on that first half? But you just thought Liverpool were going to take control. And there was a 5 or 10 minute spell where Pope makes a brilliant save on the line. Darwin Núñez is a stud's length away from turning one in for 2-1, and you just suspect Liverpool could just show their quality, their class, and pick up that momentum. They've got 7 straight wins coming into this, don't forget, including the last 2 against Man City and Real Madrid. They've got the hardest game of the 3 they've had this week tonight, by the way. But no, Newcastle go up the other end and score a goal, and wasn't it brilliant to see that combination, those 4 players of that class and pedigree? It's Tonali to Bruno to Isak to Gordon, and Gordon is faced up with Joe Gomez, who, like I said, had a torrid night, and Gomez backs himself to beat him, chops inside, puts it through Kelleher. Brilliant goal. Have I said Anthony Gordon yet? Anthony Gordon, chuck another name into the mix. He was brilliant, might feature in the merit stars. He runs away and celebrates in the far corner. And now he's done the celebration, the talk. I know myself included, a few guys have written articles about him this week, and I'll sort of pause here in terms of my reflections on the game and address that now. 1 or 2 users, and it always is the minority, it's a handful, it's 10 or 15, but that isn't helpful. Why are you writing about Gordon today of all days? Well, I'm doing it because I'm a journalist, I'm not a cheerleader, and I'm doing it because Anthony Gordon is coming up against Liverpool for the first time since the summer, when he was very nearly sold to Liverpool, when he had it in his head that he was going to Liverpool. I was there out in Germany, guys. I was the one who broke the story. I know what was going on at the time, and that's okay. It didn't happen. Anthony Gordon came back here, and he's happy at Newcastle. He never wasn't happy at Newcastle. He never thought about leaving until Newcastle, in their desperation, had floated a deal with Liverpool to sell him. That's not the player's fault. In many ways, it's not even Newcastle's fault. We're in a really tricky situation. It was described to me at the time as the nuclear option. Thankfully for you guys, it didn't happen. I didn't want him to go either. I've got all the time in the world for Anthony Gordon. But the reason we wrote those pieces this week was because his form this season, it has fluctuated. And my guys down in London on the back of the game against West Ham last week, and then by extension Palace to a degree on Saturday, they're saying to me, what's going on with this player? What's going on with this guy who every time I'm in front of a microphone or I'm putting pen to paper, I'm telling the world how brilliant he is, how wonderful he is. Where's that player of last season? I think that's fair. It's fair to explore it. I'll put the link to the article below, and within that I think it was fairly sympathetic. There's a lot of mitigating factors. There was the summer and all the Liverpool talk and what that does to a player's head. When maybe there is a 48, 72 hour period when he thinks that he is perhaps going to be on the move. You then had the frustration of the Euros when it was ludicrous that he was only used for a total of 6 minutes. And everything what went with that, it was in the end a waste of time for him. He comes back and he has no pre-season to speak of. He goes straight into the team, and of course his form because of that is up and down. He's such a finely tuned machine as Anthony Gordon that if you knocked off that, you probably are going to see a drop off. We saw how long it took him. It took him the whole second half of that season when he first signed to get to the level we saw in his only full season here when he was magnificent, one of the best left wingers in Europe, the reason he got into that England squad and the reason he should have played more. But this year it hasn't quite worked for him. There's been the disruption of the international breaks. Just when the staff here think he's getting close to that level, he goes away for a week with England and you don't have that same intensity of training, a lot of travelling. Sometimes you're not playing, you sat there on a bench. Coupled with that, there's been the positional changes. He's only started 6 of his 13 starts, I think it is, check the article. From the left, he's moved between centre forward, right wing, he's been everywhere. Well, tonight, he played on the left and he was brilliant and he scored his goal. And that, I would say to him as well, as part of the wider message I said earlier in putting it back on the team now to go and produce that down at Brentford on Saturday, you've got to talk to Gordon himself individually and say, well, that's the level now, that's what you can do. That was you of last season, it was magnificent. Go and do it again and do it the week after. And when Gordon does that, he's happier and Newcastle are all the better for it. So to talk to Anthony Gordon's celebration, yeah, what a response. Brilliant. Well done. Okay, so where were we? So it's 2-1 to Newcastle. Anthony Gordon's just scored. And again, it's against the run of play. And to no one's surprise, really, again, in terms of my match report, I wasn't really committing to a Newcastle victory at this point. Liverpool bring on Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was fantastic when he came on. And then Mo Salah arrives on the scene. And he's a genius. He is. All this talk around him, will he or won't he sign a contract for the rest of the Premier League? It's probably better that he doesn't. For the Premier League as a whole, as a product, we want to see players like that. He was brilliant, and he gets his first goal to make it 2-2. It's a mistake by Joe Linton. He gives the ball away in the middle of the park there. Alexander-Arnold draws it back at the second attempt, and Salah, brilliant little first time swept finish into the bottom corner. But then, given the spirit with which Newcastle were playing, there They went up the other end and they should have had another penalty for me. Alexander Isak gets into the area, Joel Kwanzaa comes across, and on first viewing, he sat there in the press box, we've all shouted, penalty. You then look at the replay and perhaps it looks less of a penalty, but I still think it is a penalty, if you know what I mean. I don't think Kwanzaa gets the ball slightly changes direction, and is that what's got in the head of the officials? But I don't think he touched the ball, he touched Isak, and that in turn moved the ball on, so he's hit the man and he's caused him to fall. That again for me is another penalty, and that potentially would have put Newcastle 3-2 up, but it's not. And then within a few minutes Liverpool go up the other end and they score when again it's Salah from a Trent Alexander-Arnold ball. Dan Burn slipped, his only slip of the night again, he was brilliant. How many of them have I not mentioned being brilliant? Dan Burn slips and Salah puts it in the bottom corner, and that's 3-2 Liverpool. And I'll be honest guys, at this point, yes, my intro, it is based around a Liverpool victory, given the time was running out and they had the tails up and Salah actually looked like going on and getting a hat-trick. There was a point there I thought Liverpool were going to go and make it 4-2. But even though they'd conceded 3, and even though, as I've just touched on there, they could have conceded 4, I don't think Newcastle defended badly. I really don't. I thought those across the back 4 were good. Dan Burn is coming again in the last 2 games since that West Ham match that he missed here. If he plays against West Ham, the win against West Ham, you know, I'm convinced of that. He has just shown his worth to the team, and I thought he was really good again tonight. Up against that front line, those forwards, how good they are, the best in the Premier League, the best in Europe right now. So I wouldn't come away from here, even though they've conceded 3, picking bones in the defending. 1 or 2 things could have been better, like say Tonali for the first goal, Joe Linton then giving the ball away, but there've been 3 good finishes as well. So it's 3-2, but Newcastle aren't beaten. And Bruno Guimaraes free kick, we've said how many times this season, Newcastle from set pieces, even there tonight, set pieces were frustrating at times. Bruno hoists one to the back post, and we look at the Gallagher end as we reflect on this. Liverpool switch off, Fabian Schär gets him behind, but wow, we talked about Alexander Isak's finish in the first half. Let's not underestimate this. There's only one way he can score, and that's by doing exactly what he does, sliding, catching it on the half volley, and at the same time managing to turn it back across goal into the narrowest of angles. And it's just incredible, and we know he's capable of that, you know, for a centre back. How skillful is he and how capable he is of producing moments like that. But it's not even game over. It's the 90th minute, and Newcastle had a break not long after where Harvey Barnes and Callum Wilson are involved. And again, we're sat there in the press box and we're saying to each other, this is 4-3. We're on for a repeat here. We didn't know which way it was going to go, and it should have gone the way of Newcastle. I honestly think referee Andy Madley, there'd been about a 2-minute delay in stoppage time within those 5 minutes for a free kick that was taken, so there was scope to go beyond the 5 minutes allowed and go to 97. It was on, and Eddie's just bemoaned this downstairs with us, he said it was on 5 minutes 15 when he's blown for full time. And not just that, he's blown for full time when Newcastle are actually in an attacking passage. So anyway guys, that didn't happen, and as I said at the top there, you know, the result, 3 points would have been very nice for Newcastle and very welcome, but the result, even if they'd gone and then won, it wouldn't have changed what I've said now in terms of, yeah, brilliant, wonderful, for all the reasons we've just talked through. But the challenge is to go and do it again and again and again and get back to the levels we know they should be at. Now, before we get to the merit stars, let's talk about the specifics of some of tonight and go back to the original selection. Now, 5 games ago, Eddie Howe abandoned the midfield 3, what should really be the dream ticket of Tonali, Bruno and Joe Linton, and they subsequently won 3 matches on the spin with Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff in there. Now, the last 2, it hasn't been as good, but for the first time tonight, he's put those 3 back in the midfield together, albeit for the first time with Tonali in the middle as the 6, Bruno to the right of him and Joe Linton to the left. I said in my preview video last week ahead of Crystal Palace, it was the last avenue left to explore in terms of if you were going to play those 3 together. The dream ticket, which has been more of a nightmare, trying to get it to work, was the only option left open to Eddie. And tonight, and I've just asked him downstairs, you know, he laughed when I asked the question and he said, you love that midfield 3, don't you, Craig? But he did concede. It's because it's fascinating, because it's interesting. How do you get 3 outstanding players, his words, to work? And tonight, it did. I thought the midfield were very good, given as well they were coming up against, I've just called Liverpool's attack one of the best in the Premier League, or the best in the Premier League, one of the best in Europe. Well, the midfield, by extension, has been too. You know, McAllister, Curtis Jones, Gravenbach, they've been fantastic this season. They've been operating in a 3 the way Newcastle's three, in theory, should operate. But I thought, especially in the first half, they got the better of them. Bruno looked energised, looked live, able to go by men, as I touched on, something we haven't seen so far this season. Joe Linton brought all those physical qualities that we know he's got. And Tonali at the base, he looks happier there. I would keep him there. He seems to thrive upon that responsibility. So maybe, just maybe, having seen that there for the first time tonight in that exact setup, that is the solution going forward to this riddle, this mystery, this conundrum that we've spoken about all season. And now it's got the point where Eddie Howe was laughing when he was asked about it. But he certainly had a smile on his face afterwards, the manager. And just to take you inside his reflections, well, he said, yeah, we could have won, we could have lost, mixed emotions, but ultimately he leaves there pleased. And it comes back to the attitude of his players. He knows now they've got to go and do it again. And on Eddie himself as well. Now, there was a lot of noise after the game, Crystal Palace on Saturday, and I said in my preview video why I believe he deserves support and patience and time, and crucially back in January, to shake Newcastle from a feeling that things have gone stale with no improvement at the starting 11 in 18 months. That's not normal. Top teams, top 7 teams don't go the best part of 2 years without adding to the starting 11. So that's what Newcastle need to do in January, just to inject that enthusiasm, excitement and everything else. And I'm really strong in my belief of that Howe deserves that. But tonight I thought it was really telling that the game was bookended by the first 5 minutes, Eddie Howe's black and white army, and at the end. Now in between, you guys in the stand supported those on the pitch, but I thought that was a really telling and a really important show of support for the manager. Now finally, thanks for waiting, we get to the merit stars. And I've honestly really wrestled with these. So many contenders, but I'm not going to fudge it. I always say this. I look back at some videos from last year. I was given 2 1 stars, 2 2 stars. No, it's a 1 2 3 in ascending order, and the one, well, that goes to Bruno Guimaraes. 2 assists tonight, playing that slightly different role for the first time back here at St James's, that number 8, where he has looked stodgy at times. You know, a lot of the struggles here at home, in part for me, has been because of Bruno not playing like that world-class midfielder he is meant to be, not getting forward enough, not supporting. Tonight he did. I thought he was everywhere. He was good on the ball, he was energetic, he had quality, he had everything, he had absolutely everything. And how was he only getting 1 star? Well, that just shows you how good the 2 guys who were in front of them were. But Bruno Guimaraes, that's the level. Again, I'm talking about the team and then I'm coming back to individuals. That's the level they've set there tonight. I'm saying the same thing, guys, but Bruno, go and do it again. 2 stars, well, that goes to Anthony Gordon. And I haven't got a great deal more to say, given that I broke off for the best part of 2 minutes to talk about Gordon's celebration and everything around that. But Gordon was brilliant. And yes, some might come back and say, well, he's done it tonight against a team who tried to sign him in the summer, who he might still retain ambitions one day of playing for. I don't know, because we saw he's against Arsenal when the same thing was levelled at him. But no, forget all of that. Anthony Gordon was fantastic tonight. He was fast, he was incisive, he had the quality bar, and he's finished for the chance there at 1-0. He took his goal brilliantly. He looked dangerous, he looked enthused, he looked everything. Again, much as I've said about Bruno, everything was there. How hasn't he come away with the 3 stars? And that is because the man who was at the top of the tree as we go towards Christmas time, well, that was Alexander Isak. And there was a good reason Eddie felt fit and felt necessary there to break off and talk about him the way he did downstairs, using that word magic. And it wasn't just the goal, it was the manner in which we saw the first half hour at Crystal Palace on Saturday before he came off with injury, when he didn't look necessarily that interested. I know he got the knocks, maybe there was mitigation there, but he didn't have the same energy and enthusiasm about his body language he did there tonight from the off. And that is the world-class striker, the one who last season was, you know, the envy of many other Premier League teams, those at the very top, to the point where Arsenal and others are watching him. Well, he was there tonight, and Eddie called it his best of the season for Newcastle, and I would go along with that. And that is the reason why Alexander Isak is the recipient of my 3 stars. He was fantastic. Well, guys, I said it was going to take quite a while to get through all of that, and so it has, but I hope it was worth it. Nights like that, they don't come around very often, so yeah, it took that little bit of extra time just to pick through it and analyse why Newcastle was so good. But again, this video has come full circle, and I've popped it in at various junctures in between. They've set the standard now. Go and do it again, guys. Over to you. So thank you again for watching. Let's have one last little scan. Please hit like, comment, subscribe. I'll put those links in the description below as well. But it's goodbye for now, and I'll see you at the back end of the week when we'll be talking to Eddie Howe ahead of the trip down to Brentford. Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.